The massive Doran ship appeared in Earth's orbit without warning one clear morning in 2157. News channels worldwide interrupted their broadcasts with the same startling message: "We are not alone." The ship hung like a silver teardrop above the atmosphere, silent for 3 days while government scrambled and people either panicked or celebrated in the streets. On the 4th day, they finally spoke, not with grand pronouncements of peace or threats of war, but with a simple request for a meeting. "They want to talk trade," President Lee announced to a nervous public. "They've asked for representatives to meet them at the Jupiter outpost." The crew selected for first contact included diplomats, scientists, military officers, and, to many people's surprise, several agricultural experts. Among them was Tai-Ho Kim, a weathered man in his 50s who looked out of place in the sleek government shuttle. "Cowboys in space," joked one of the younger diplomats as Tai-Ho quietly stowed his worn leather hat in the overhead compartment. "Better hope you never need one," was all Tai-Ho said before settling into his seat. The Jupiter outpost was humanity's furthest permanent settlement, a spinning ring of modules that had taken 15 years to build. It seemed impressive to human eyes until the Doran shuttle docked alongside them. Their vessel made Earth's best technology look like children's toys cobbled together from spare parts. The Dorans themselves were even more striking. Tall and slender with iridescent skin that shifted colors with their moods, they moved with fluid grace that made humans seem clumsy by comparison. Their leader, Ambassador Q, had skin that pulsed with deep purple as he surveyed the human delegation. "We expected your leaders would send more advanced representatives," were his first words, translated through a device at his throat. His gaze lingered on Tai-Ho's calloused hands. Soo-Jin Park, Earth's chief diplomat, stepped forward. "We've brought experts from various fields to discuss potential cooperation." Ambassador Q's skin flickered yellow. "How quaint. We've studied your civilization for some time. You've barely mastered basic space travel. You still burn fossil fuels on your home planet. Many of you still labor with animals to produce food." The diplomatic team stiffened, but maintained their professional smiles. This wasn't going as planned. "Yet you've achieved interstellar travel," Soo-Jin noted. "We have much to learn from each other." "Learn from you?" A ripple of blue-green, which the humans would later learn indicated amusement, spread across the gathered Dorans. What could the Doran Alliance possibly learn from a species that spent most of its history killing each other over imaginary borders? Tai-Ho watched silently from the back of the room. He'd never been one for fancy words or politics, but he recognized the look in the alien's eyes. He'd seen it before in city folks who visited his ranch thinking they knew everything, because they had college degrees and clean hands. The meeting continued for hours. The Dorans outlined what they wanted: mining rights on Earth's moon and Mars, access to certain biological specimens, and limited cultural exchange. What they offered in return seemed meager: some medical knowledge and limited technological insights, but nothing transformative. "This isn't a partnership," Soo-Jin finally said. "This is exploitation." Ambassador Q's skin darkened. "It's appropriate compensation given the differences in our civilizations. You're barely evolved primates playing with spacecraft." The room fell silent. One of the military officers clenched his fists. "I think," Tai-Ho suddenly spoke, his deep voice cutting through the tension, "that you folks might be confusing technology with wisdom." All eyes turned to him. He stood slowly, walking to the center of the room with the unhurried pace of someone who'd spent a lifetime moving among animals larger and stronger than himself. "Where I come from, we judge people by their actions, not their toys. You've got fancy ships and pretty lights under your skin, but so far all I'm seeing is fancy talk and not much respect." Ambassador Q's skin pulsed red. "And you are?" Tai-Ho Kim. "I raise horses and cattle in Wyoming. Been doing it for 30 years. An animal handler?" The ambassador's translator couldn't quite capture his tone, but his dismissive expression needed no translation. "And what insights could you possibly offer about interstellar relations?" "Not much," Tai-Ho admitted with a small smile. but I know a thing or two about dealing with creatures bigger and stronger than me without getting either of us hurt. Seems to me that might be useful here." The Doran delegation whispered among themselves, their skin shifting through patterns of color. "Perhaps," Ambassador Q finally said, "we should test the capabilities of humans before finalizing our arrangements. A practical demonstration." "What kind of demonstration?" Sujin asked cautiously. "We have recently established a research outpost on Nexus 9. The local fauna has proven challenging to manage even for our technology. If humans believe they have special skills in this area, perhaps they would care to demonstrate them." Tejo caught the glint in the ambassador's eye. It was a trap, or at least a test designed for humans to fail. But he'd been underestimated his whole life. "I'd be happy to show you what humans can do," he said quietly. And that was how Earth's fate came to rest in the hands of a cowboy who had never imagined he'd one day represent humanity among the stars. The meeting room on the Jupiter station felt colder the next day. The human delegation sat on one side of the oval table, the Dorans on the other. The gap between them seemed wider than just the physical space. "Let me understand this correctly," Sujin said, reviewing the tablet in front of her. "You're proposing a competition on Nexus 9 to determine the terms of our relationship going forward." Ambassador Q's skin rippled with smug confidence. "Precisely. We believe actions reveal more than words. You claim humans possess special abilities that compensate for your technological shortcomings. We offer you the chance to prove it." Tejo leaned forward. "Tell us about these creatures." A hologram appeared above the table, showing a six-legged beast roughly the size of a rhino but with the agility of a mountain lion. Its hide was thick and armored, with a row of spines running down its back. Two curved tusks protruded from its lower jaw. "We call them thunder beasts," said June, the Doran science officer. "They roam the plains of Nexus 9 in herds. They're territorial, aggressive, and have proven resistant to our normal containment methods. They keep breaking through the barriers around our research station," added another Doran. "3 of our scientists were injured last month." Tejo studied the creature's movements, the way it lowered its head before charging, how it used its front legs to dig and mark territory, the protective formation it made around its young. "And what exactly would this competition involve?" asked General Han, the military representative. "Simple," Ambassador Q replied. "Each team will attempt to capture and control as many thunder beasts as possible within 3 standard days. Whoever succeeds will dictate the terms of future Earth-Doran relations." "And if we refuse?" asked Sujin. "Then we proceed with our original terms. Though that would suggest your claims of human capability were exaggerated." The human delegation asked for a private moment to confer. Once the Dorans left, the room erupted in heated whispers. "This is absurd, General Han hissed. "We came to establish diplomatic relations, not participate in some alien rodeo." "It's a setup," agreed Dr. Park. "Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. How could we possibly win a competition on their terms?" Tejo, who had been quiet until now, cleared his throat. "May I see those hollows again?" Sujin pulled up the Thunderbeast footage. Tejo watched intently, his eyes narrowing at certain movements. "These aren't so different from buffalo or wild horses," he said finally. "Bigger, meaner maybe, but animals act like animals across the universe, seems like." "You can't be serious," General Han scoffed. "These are alien creatures on an alien world. Life is life," Tejo shrugged. "These beasts have families they protect. They mark territory. They have dominance displays. I've been working with animals like that my whole life." Sujin studied him. "Are you suggesting we accept their challenge?" "I'm suggesting I take a small team. People who know how to handle large animals without all the fancy tech." "Cowboys," Sujin said, not hiding her skepticism. "Cowboys, ranchers, horse trainers." Tejo nodded. "People who understand that working with big, dangerous animals isn't about dominating them. It's about respect." When the Dorans returned, they were visibly surprised by the humans' answer. "We accept your challenge," Sujin announced. "Tejo Kim will lead our team." Ambassador Q's skin flashed bright yellow. Amusement. The animal handler? With what equipment? We'll need permission to bring horses from Earth, Tejo said calmly, and basic supplies, ropes, saddles, that sort of thing. The Doran's skin rippled with colors as they communicated silently among themselves. Finally, June spoke, barely containing his derision. These savages want to bring animals to control animals. Primitive creatures to manage other primitive creatures. Is that a problem? Tejo asked mildly. Ambassador Q made a gesture that approximated a human shrug. By all means, it will make your failure all the more instructive. We'll arrange transport for your livestock. After the meeting, Sujin pulled Tejo aside. Are you sure about this? The fate of Earth could depend on this challenge. Tejo gazed out the viewport at the stars. You know, my grandfather used to tell me stories about when he was young, before the big farms took over, how people thought the old ways were useless once the machines came. But every time there was a big storm and the power went out, who did they call? The people who knew how to work without electricity. The people who understood the land. He turned to her. These Dorans, they're so wrapped up in their technology they've forgotten the basics. That might be their weakness. And if you're wrong, then I'm wrong, he said simply. But I'd rather fail trying it my way than fail trying to beat them at their game. 2 days later, Tejo had assembled his team, 5 men and women from ranching and rodeo backgrounds plus 2 veterinarians familiar with large animal behavior. The Dorans watched with unconcealed amusement as the humans loaded 8 horses into the transport ship bound for Nexus 9. These savages and their beasts, June remarked to Ambassador Q as they observed the loading. Why not bring spears and cave paintings as well? Let them have their primitive tools, Q replied. It will make the lesson all the more clear when they fail. What the Dorans didn't see was Tejo quietly moving among the horses, whispering reassurances as the strange surroundings made them nervous. He didn't use force or restraints, just patience, understanding, and a relationship built on trust. It was precisely the approach he planned to use on Nexus 9. The sky of Nexus 9 had an unsettling greenish tint, like the air before a tornado back on Earth. Tejo shielded his eyes against the alien sunlight as he surveyed the rolling plains stretching out before them. Tall blue-tinged grass swayed in the breeze, occasionally revealing glimpses of movement. Wildlife going about their business, unaware of the contest about to take place. Reminds me of Montana, said G1, a sturdy woman who'd spent 20 years wrangling cattle in the American Northwest. She adjusted her hat and squinted at the horizon. Except for the 2 suns and the blue grass, the human team had been given a small plateau for their base camp. The Dorans had established their operation 5 miles east, a gleaming collection of prefabricated structures and hovering drones that made the humans' canvas tents look like something from another century. Which, Tejo reflected, was precisely the point. They're watching us, noted Heechul, the youngest of their group, nodding toward a small drone hovering just beyond their perimeter, probably laughing at our setup. Let them laugh, Tejo replied calmly, hammering in a stake for the horse corral. We've got work to do. The horses had survived the journey surprisingly well. After their initial nervousness at the strange smells and slightly lower gravity, they'd settled into curious exploration of their new surroundings. Sang Mi, one of the veterinarians, checked each animal carefully before giving Tejo a satisfied nod. They're adapting better than I expected. Pulse and respiration normal. Horses are tougher than people give them credit for, Tejo said, patting his favorite mare, a dun-colored quarter horse named Dusty. Just like humans, their first day was spent setting up camp and preparing equipment. Unlike the Dorans with their instant deployable shelters, the human team worked with their hands, driving stakes, stretching canvas, checking tack, and coiling ropes. It was slow physical labor that the watching drones recorded with what could only be interpreted as mechanical disdain. As the alien planet's shorter day cycle brought on dusk, Tejo called for everyone to gather. Time to scout, he announced. We need to understand this land before we try working it. They rode out in pairs, each taking a different direction, with instructions to observe but not engage any thunder beasts they might encounter. Tai-Ho and Ji-Wan headed north, following what appeared to be a game trail through the blue grasslands. The trail led them to a shallow valley where a small herd of thunder beasts grazed. From their elevated position, Tai-Ho could study the creatures without disturbing them. They were more imposing in person than in the holograms, each standing nearly 6 feet at the shoulder with armored hides that caught the fading sunlight. They moved with surprising grace for their bulk, and Tai-Ho noted how they positioned themselves, always keeping the younger members of the herd protected in the center. "Family groups," he murmured. "Just like bison. Look at that big male. He's the herd leader. See how the others give him space?" Ji-Wan nodded. "And the way they're grazing, they move in a pattern, not random." They watched for an hour, noting behavioral patterns and herd dynamics. When one of the younger thunder beasts strayed too far from the group, they witnessed how quickly the adults responded, surrounding the juvenile and guiding it back to safety, with gentle nudges from their massive heads. "They care for their young," Tai-Ho said softly. "That's something we can work with." When they returned to camp, the other teams had similar observations. Hyunwoo and Yoonji had discovered a watering hole where multiple herds gathered without conflict, suggesting complex social structures. Minho and Sangmi had mapped several territorial boundaries marked by scent glands on the thunder beast's front legs. As the alien night fell, bringing with it unfamiliar stars and the rise of a pale blue moon, they gathered around a campfire. The flickering light cast long shadows as they shared their findings and began forming a strategy. "The Dorans are using drones for their scouting," reported Hee-Chul, who had ridden close enough to observe their competitors. "They're setting up some kind of sonic perimeter." "Technology versus understanding," mused Tai-Ho. "They're trying to control these creatures without knowing them first." "Speaking of knowing things," Ji-Wan said, passing around a pot of coffee. "What's our actual plan here? We've got 3 days to outperform a species with technology centuries ahead of ours." Tai-Ho took a sip of the strong coffee and stared into the fire. "We need to think like the thunder beasts, not like humans trying to outsmart them. From what we've seen today, they're herd animals with strong family bonds. They respond to threats by circling to protect their young." He grabbed a stick and began drawing in the dirt. The others leaned in, watching as a plan took shape in the firelight. Not a plan based on technology or force, but on centuries of human experience, working with the natural instincts of powerful animals. Across the plains, in their illuminated compound, the Dorans watched the humans through their monitoring systems. Ambassador Q and June observed with puzzlement as the humans sat talking around their primitive fire late into the night. "What are they doing?" June asked. "Why waste valuable preparation time with this inefficient social gathering?" Ambassador Q's skin shifted to a thoughtful blue. "Perhaps it's some form of ritual before hunting. A primitive superstition." What the Dorans couldn't understand was that around that simple fire, the humans weren't just talking. They were building something the technically advanced aliens had never needed: trust in each other. Stories were shared of close calls with angry bulls, techniques passed down through generations, lessons learned the hard way about respecting an animal's power while guiding its behavior. By the time they finally turned in for the night, each human knew exactly what role they would play in tomorrow's effort. The plan wasn't written in any computer or displayed on any screen. It lived in their shared understanding, built through conversation and trust around a flickering fire under alien stars. And as Tai-Ho drifted off to sleep, he couldn't help but smile at the irony. The Dorans thought humans primitive for bringing horses to an alien world, never suspecting that the real strength of humanity wasn't in their tools, but in their connections to each other and to the living things around them. Dawn broke over Nexus 9 with a burst of copper light that set the blue grasslands shimmering. Tai-Ho was already awake, checking his saddle straps and running his hands along Dusty's neck. The mare seemed to sense the importance of the day, standing still and alert as he finished his preparations. "Today we show them what we can do," he murmured to the horse, who flicked her ears in response. The rest of the team emerged from their tents, moving with quiet efficiency. No one needed to talk much. They'd discussed everything the night before. G1 distributed the specially designed lariats they'd brought, stronger than standard ropes, but still flexible enough for precision throws. Sang-mi checked her medical kit one last time, while Hee-chul adjusted the comm units they'd wear to stay in contact across the plains. As the team mounted up, a sleek Doran shuttle hummed overhead, landing nearby. Ambassador Q and 2 observers stepped out, their skin glowing faintly in the morning light. "The competition begins now," Ambassador Q announced formally. "You have 3 standard days. Success will be measured by the number of thunder beasts, safely contained and controlled without injury to either party." Taeho nodded from atop his horse. "We understand the terms." "Your primitive approach is fascinating," Q added, his skin rippling with what the humans had come to recognize as amusement. "Our team deployed 2 hours ago with our containment technology." Taeho didn't rise to the bait. He simply tipped his hat and signaled to his team. They moved out in formation, riders spreading across the grassland like a scene from Earth's Old West. The Doran observers watched, clearly puzzled by the lack of equipment beyond the horses and ropes. "They truly believe they can succeed with such limited tools," one whispered to Q. "Let them learn through failure," Q replied. "Sometimes that is the only way less developed species advance." Across the plains, the competition unfolded in stark contrast. The Doran team had established a perimeter using sonic emitters, devices that projected frequencies designed to herd the thunder beast toward a central containment area. Their approach was systematic and technological, with hovering drones tracking herd movements and portable force fields ready to deploy. The human team, meanwhile, split into 3 groups. Taeho led the main group toward the largest herd they'd spotted during their scouting. G1 took 2 riders to work the western valley, while Hyunwoo's group headed for the watering hole where multiple herds gathered. Taeho's group approached their target herd from downwind, moving slowly and deliberately. The thunder beasts noticed them quickly, the lead male raising its massive head and pawing at the ground with one 6-fingered foot. "Easy now," Taeho called to his riders. "Remember, we're not trying to catch them all at once. Just the lead male first." They spread out in a wide semicircle, not threatening but positioned to guide movement. Taeho kept his eyes on the lead thunder beast, reading its body language as it shifted nervously. "It's just like approaching a wild Mustang," he said into his comm. "Slow and steady. Let him see you're not a predator," the thunder beast snorted, a sound like distant thunder that gave the species its name. The herd bunched closer together, but they didn't bolt. Not yet. Taeho edged Dusty forward, moving at an angle rather than directly toward the animals. "That's it," he murmured, as much to his horse as to his team. "Nice and easy." Meanwhile, across the plain, the Dorans were having their first success. Their sonic emitters had driven 3 thunder beasts into their containment field. June watched with satisfaction as the creatures found themselves unable to escape the invisible barrier. "First capture confirmed," he reported. "The neural pacifiers are ready to deploy." The Doran's neural technology was designed to override the thunder beast's aggressive impulses, rendering them docile and compliant. It was elegant, efficient, and completely divorced from any need to understand the creatures themselves. Back with Taeho's group, a different approach was unfolding. After nearly an hour of patient maneuvering, they had managed to separate the lead male from his herd temporarily. Minho and Yoonji kept the herd calm with steady circular riding patterns, while Taeho approached the male. "Now comes the tricky part," he said, uncoiling his rope. With a practiced motion, he sent the lariat flying through the air. It settled perfectly around the thunder beast's neck. The creature bellowed and reared, but Taeho was ready, dallying, the rope around his saddle horn and using his horse's weight as anchor. Dusty, trained for this work, leaned back against the pull. "Easy, big fella," Taeho called, not to his horse but to the thunder beast. "Nobody's gonna hurt you." For several tense minutes, the thunder beast fought against the rope, while Taeho maintained steady pressure, not enough to choke or injure, just enough to establish a connection. Gradually, the creature's struggles lessened as it realized it wasn't being attacked. "Now, Minho," Taeho called. Minho rode forward with another rope, and together they established control of the lead thunderbeast. With remarkable patience, they began guiding it toward their temporary corral, using techniques refined over centuries of working with powerful animals. By midday, reports came in from all three human teams. Jiwan's group had successfully corralled 4 thunderbeasts using a technique borrowed from herding bison. Hyunwoo's team had managed to gain the trust of 2 young thunderbeasts at the watering hole, and the adults had followed cautiously. The Dorans, meanwhile, were encountering unexpected difficulties. Their captured thunderbeasts had initially seemed docile under the neural pacifiers, but as the effects weakened, the creatures became increasingly agitated, more so than their natural state. One had already damaged an equipment module with its powerful tusks. "Increase the neural suppression," June ordered, his skin flushing dark with frustration. "We're at maximum safe levels," his technician replied. "Any higher could cause permanent brain damage." As the day progressed, a sudden change in weather brought new challenges. Dark clouds gathered on the horizon, and the air filled with static, electricity, a storm unique to Nexus 9's atmosphere. The Dorans scrambled to protect their sensitive equipment, but when the first lightning bolt struck nearby, several of their sonic emitters shorted out. Without the perimeter fully intact, their captured thunderbeasts sensed freedom. The largest male, already agitated from the neural pacifiers, charged the weakened barrier and broke through. The others followed, stampeding directly toward the Doran base camp where their scientists worked. "Emergency protocols," June shouted, his skin pulsing alarming red patterns. "Activate all backup systems." But the storm had affected more than just the perimeter. As thunder rolled across the plains, the thunderbeasts, living up to their name, responded with increased aggression, perhaps mistaking the sound for rival herds. Taeho's team witnessed the chaos from their position half a mile away. Without hesitation, he gave the order. "Saddle up. They need help over there." The storm raged across the plains of Nexus 9, turning the alien sky a violent purple-black. Lightning struck with increasing frequency, each flash illuminating the chaos unfolding at the Doran camp. Escaped thunderbeasts charged through the compound, their massive forms demolishing equipment and sending the alien scientists fleeing for shelter. Jin Woo, the Doran chief researcher, found himself trapped between a damaged module and an approaching thunderbeast. The creature lowered its head, tusks gleaming in the stormlight, ready to charge. Jin Woo's skin flickered with fear patterns, his neural disruptor useless in his trembling hands. Just as the thunderbeast lunged forward, a blur of movement cut between them. Taeho, on Dusty riding at full gallop, swung wide around the beast, drawing its attention. The thunderbeast pivoted, confused by this new threat that didn't behave like the others. "Get to safety," Taeho shouted to Jin Woo, who didn't need a translator to understand. Across the compound, the rest of the human team had arrived. Jiwan and Hee Chul worked in perfect tandem, ropes spinning as they separated 2 thunderbeasts from a group of cornered Doran technicians. Hyunwoo led another away from the main power generator, using his horse to establish a barrier between the creature and its target. Ambassador Q watched from the command center's doorway, his skin shifting through colors of astonishment as the humans moved fearlessly among the rampaging beasts. There was a fluid grace to their actions, a harmony between rider and horse that allowed them to anticipate and redirect the thunderbeast's movements without technology. "How are they doing?" "This?" he asked June, who stood beside him equally transfixed. "I don't know," June admitted, his scientific certainty shaken for the first time since landing on Nexus 9. Outside, Taeho had managed to get a rope around the thunderbeast threatening Jin Woo. Rather than trying to stop the powerful creature by force, he used the rope to establish a connection, applying pressure and releasing it in a rhythm that confused the beast's aggression. Gradually, he guided it away from the structures and people, toward the open plains where it could run without causing harm. The storm began to subside as quickly as it had arrived, leaving behind a landscape of scattered equipment and stunned aliens. But remarkably, not a single Doran had been seriously injured, and none of the thunderbeasts had been harmed either. As the twin suns of Nexus 9 broke through the clouds, they illuminated an unexpected scene: humans and thunderbeasts coexisting in a tense but manageable balance. By nightfall, the situation had stabilized. The human team had successfully herded the escaped thunder beasts away from the Doran camp and back toward their natural territories. More impressively, they had maintained control of their own captured beasts throughout the crisis, demonstrating a mastery that even the most skeptical Doran couldn't deny. As Tejo unsaddled Dusty in the fading light, giving the exhausted mare an extra handful of imported oats, a figure approached from the direction of the Doran compound. It was Ambassador Q, walking alone without his usual entourage of aides and technology. "Your animal served you well today," Q said, his tone different than before, the condescension replaced with something closer to curiosity. "She's not serving me," Tejo corrected gently, stroking Dusty's neck. "We're partners." Q studied the horse and human for a long moment. "May I?" he asked, gesturing toward Dusty. Tejo nodded, and the alien slowly extended a hand. Dusty sniffed cautiously, then allowed the touch. Q's skin rippled with subtle patterns of wonder as he felt the horse's warm breath against his palm. "In all our explorations, we've encountered thousands of species across hundreds of worlds," Q said quietly. "We've categorized them, studied them, sometimes controlled them, but this relationship you have, this is different." "It's not just with horses," Tejo explained, picking up a brush and demonstrating how to groom Dusty's coat. "Throughout our history, humans have worked alongside animals, dogs, horses, elephants, birds. We learned early that force only gets you so far. True partnership comes from mutual respect." Q's skin shifted to a deep blue that Tejo hadn't seen before. "The competition was designed for you to fail. We wanted to demonstrate the superiority of our approach. I figured as much. Yet when our technology failed, when we were in danger, you came to our aid without hesitation." Tejo shrugged. "That's what neighbors do." Q was silent for a moment, processing this simple statement. "How?" he finally asked. "How did you know what to do with the thunder beasts when our neural controllers only made them more aggressive?" Tejo handed the brush to Q, showing him how to continue the grooming. The alien awkwardly mimicked the motions. "Cowboys don't conquer," Tejo explained, watching Q's tentative brushstrokes become more confident. "We partner, been working with creatures stronger than us for centuries. You have to understand them first, their needs, their fears, their social structures. Your neural tech tried to override their natural instincts, and that just created confusion and fear. But how could you understand creatures from another world so quickly? Life is life," Tejo said simply. "All creatures want safety, comfort, respect. Start with that assumption, and you're halfway there." As the final sunlight faded from the sky, the rest of both teams gathered around a common fire, a human tradition the Dorans had reluctantly agreed to join. Stories were exchanged, techniques explained, and gradually the stiffness between the species began to melt away. 3 days later, when the competition officially ended, the results were undeniable. The human team had successfully managed and controlled twice the number of thunder beasts as the Dorans, without a single injury to either species. More significantly, the thunder beasts handled by the human team returned calmly to their herds when released, while those subjected to the Doran neural technology showed signs of lasting agitation and distress. On the final evening, aboard the Doran ship preparing to return to Earth, Ambassador Q formally presented the revised treaty terms to the human delegation. Based on the demonstrated capabilities of human approaches to complex biological management, the Doran Alliance recognizes Earth as a full partner in interstellar relations, he announced, his skin glowing with formal patterns. Furthermore, we request the establishment of an educational exchange program focused on human methodologies of working with other species. Sujin, reading between the lines, looked at Tejo with barely concealed amazement. "They want to learn from us." "From you specifically," Q clarified, turning to Tejo. "Our young scientists have expressed particular interest in these cowboy methods." Tejo rubbed his jaw thoughtfully. "Never thought I'd be teaching alien. Cowboys. Is that a yes? Q asked, his translator failing to hide the hope in his voice. Reckon it is, Tejo replied with a smile. Every being in this universe has something to teach and something to learn. Seems like we just found what we can offer each other. As the ship prepared for departure, a group of young Dorans approached Tejo shyly. Their skin rippled with patterns of excitement and nervousness as they presented him with a carefully crafted replica of a human cowboy hat, sized for Doran heads. We wish to learn the ways of the cowboy, their leader said formally. If you would teach us. Tejo accepted the gift with a solemn nod, then broke into a warm smile. First lesson starts now. It's not about the hat. It's about what's underneath it. And looking at all of you, I'd say you've already got the most important part figured out. As Earth came into view through the ship's viewport, Tejo reflected on how far they'd come. The Doran Alliance had arrived expecting to find primitive savages barely worth their time. Instead, they'd discovered something their advanced technology had never taught them, that true advancement isn't measured by dominance, but by harmony, that sometimes the oldest wisdom is the deepest, and as for humanity's place among the stars, well, it seemed the galaxy might need a few good cowboys after all.